All right. Welcome to another episode of Connect and Politic. We're here with a special guest. Please introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're currently located, and your favorite snack.
Oh, I am Donne Settles Allen. I am in Silver Spring, Maryland. My favorite snack, unfortunately, is a Nutrageous candy bar. I know, it's terrible, but I like chocolate and it satisfies my soul.
And what's your favorite type of chocolate?
Milk chocolate. I know I should like dark, but it's nasty. Don't judge me.
You said you like milk chocolate and dark chocolate.
I'm supposed to like dark chocolate. I do not. It is good for you. It's the cacao. Yeah, I get it. But I like the processed milk chocolate. It's tastier and sweeter, and I like sweets.
Got it. Do you remember your favorite food as a child?
Oh, yeah. My mother's baked beans.
What was special about it?
My husband calls it chili, but because it has, it's just baked beans, regular beans, and it has ground beef, corn, peas, and she puts barbecue sauce and mustard, and she really does it up. A little brown sugar, maple syrup, and it just fills you up. You just feel so nourished. And I don't know if it's all this maple syrup or the brown sugar, but it's so good. And I knew she made it with love. It's like one of the favorite things that she made. And I would request it, can you make your beans? So now I make it, and my kids are like, you should just have this all the time in the refrigerator. So my mama's beans is my favorite meal. That's key.
Nice. What's your fondest memory from childhood?
My grandmother cooking at the kitchen sink. Cooking in her kitchen, but standing at the sink, looking at the kids. So my grandmother used to take care of a lot of kids, not including, it was me, my sister and brother. There was a couple other kids. So if you needed childcare, my grandmother would watch you. And I would literally sit inside with her and watch her. I would watch her make all the food. I would watch her clean it up. I would help her. And I wouldn't necessarily go outside with the other kids because they were bad. They weren't bad. They were mischievous. And they used to play in the back alley when they weren't supposed to. And I was a kid that didn't want to get in trouble. And I always wanted to stay on her good side. So my favorite memory was being with her in her house, watching her cook and take care of the house and just manage that. Right. I think that's kind of where my mothering came from, innately from that experience.
So how do you think that, your childhood and those experiences help groom you into the person you are today?
Deep questions, Mike. Because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother in my early years. My mother was a working mother, and my grandmother lived on her way to work. So she would drop us off and go to work, come back, pick us up, go home. But I would spend summers there, and it wasn't too far from my house. So it was just easy for me to just hang out with her. So just having that extra generation, those eyes on you. And I guess I would be old school. I'm a late 70s baby. So if we got in trouble, everybody knew who you were. So you have those extra eyes. It was a community, and we were given certain allowances to be kids and be free. Even though we were in DC, and I could go. I was 6 years old going to the store for her. You would never do that now, but it just showed me that children are capable to do that. As a kid, I was trusted to do that and come back, and with the change and the actual item. So trusting children, it showed me that you can trust children despite the world that they're growing up in around them, and that they need to have experiences. And I learned that from my grandmother, I learned that from my mother, and just, I'm a PK, so my dad was a pastor, so I always had eyes on me. So just knowing that you have to live your life in a way that you're demonstrating for others how to be the best you're supposed to be, even when you weren't, but then you knew that there were consequences. So I like to teeter the line and push the boundaries, but at the end of the day, I had all those eyes on me. So I didn't want to do too much.
So speaking of that, what are the most important lessons you learned from your grandmother, your dad, and your mom? So those three, key figures in your life.
Right. I'll say my dad. So my dad recently passed, so I've had like a lot of time to reflect on his life and just thinking about like the impact that he made. But for me specifically, just thinking about my dad was like, he was also a PK, but he was very open about sharing his ups and his downs. And he became a pastor, and he was like an open book. And people really, really were drawn to him because of that, because he would share his good experiences, and he would share his bad experience, and he would go into depth with sharing his bad experience. Like, he would not sugarcoat it. And so from a kid, I knew the things that my dad did as a young man and how he dealt, he was into drugs at a certain point. He went to Vietnam, and I have all of the, what do you call it? I have his photo albums, and I'm like, who's that woman? And who, And he was really open. He would share it with me, but he would also kind of bring it back.
Yeah.
So what you don't want to do is some of these things. I'm telling you all of these things so that you don't have to experience it in the same way that I did. I think that my dad being open in the way he was, but also making sure it came full circle so you understood the gravity of the decisions that he made, whether good or bad, had a consequence to it. And it was up to me to choose how I wanted to live, because he was going to give me the whole raw deal. So I appreciated that about my dad, and I respect him, and I do the same with my own children. And no matter how painful or embarrassing it is, I will tell them the whole raw story, and I'm like, it's up to you to make the choice that you want to make. And my dad will always relate it back to like how God gives us choices in life, and how he gives us the choice, but he wants us to choose what's best. Mm-hmm. So you give the whole raw deal, and then you say, choose what's best. Don't go down this road because you see where it leads. I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna give you explicit details. And he would always ask us to choose what is best. So I love that about my memories of my dad. And my grandmother, she was just I have my two grandmothers. My one grandmother was a working grandmother, so I didn't see her as much. But one thing she said to me, and I was just saying it to my husband the other day, she said when I became a mother and a wife, she said, so one day, baby, you do a lot of talking. You just talk so much, and you tell everybody what's on your mind, don't you? She said, well, one day you're gonna be quiet. And I said, well, what does that mean? I expound upon that. And she said, I don't have to. You'll know when it happened. And I was like, shade. It was like real grandma shade. So I was like, and literally, in probably the last 5 years, I've been a little bit more quiet. Some things have happened, right? I've gotten the load on me, and I recognize that all the talking that I do, all of it makes no difference. So you might as well sit back and see where you are, assess the situation in your solitude. And then I also now get up early in the morning for that quiet. I long for the quiet because I have 3 boys. It's very loud. Once they arise for the day, it's very loud. So I take that quiet time, and it's so rejuvenating. It's like there's no other time like the time in the morning when nobody's up and you're the only one. So yeah, she was right about the quiet. I am quieter now. I haven't quite gotten to the level of quiet that she has. And then my other grandmother, she would just be what you needed her to be. So if you needed her to back off, she was really flexible in that way. She took care of people. She fed people. She was just epitomized like nurturing. And so the lesson I learned for her is nurture people around you, nurture the situation that you're in, nurture people around you. She was very nurturing, and I was just like, to my core, I'm like, that woman like had such an effect on me because she was so nurturing. She was always there. If I didn't want to be bothered, she felt the shade, but she would just say, fine, you don't want to be bothered? I'll be that if that's what you need. But if you need me to fix you something, I'll go fix it for you. What do you need? I am here to nurture you because I was her granddaughter. So that meant a lot. And my mother is like the consummate, I would call her Jesus Christ superstar. Like she is always, nothing matters but Jesus. Okay? I was talking to a friend today and I said, well, if my mother was here, she would say none of that matters. If they're not living for the Lord, none of that matters. And that's what I learned from my mom. None of it matters. So there's a lot of characters in my life, and they're all melded right here. You're seeing all of these characters.
Oh man, that's
in my
great.
Life.
That's great. That's great. That's great. So you kind of alluded to this when you talked about getting up early. What are your favorite things to do for self-care?
My favorite things are to take a walk in the woods. Like, I think they call it forest bathing now, but I call it a walk in the woods. And that is when I can, number one, is the air is so much crisper and fresh because you're getting it directly from the trees before it reaches the outside world. And then just the sounds that you hear and the quiet and just listening to like nature wake up. It's just really, there's nothing else like it. And there's almost no descriptive words to give to it. Very ethereal and everything, but it really nurtures me to get up and go and walk in the woods. So I do my best crying out to God and praying especially if I'm in a funk, I will go and walk, take a little forest walk and just walk around, because I guess my thing is I know that if God created that he has control over whatever I'm going through, whether that be good or bad. And so I kind of look to creation, looking to nature to make sure that kind of reminds me that I'm not in control and it's okay. Yeah. So that's my number one self-care. But I also journal, I also do yoga, I also deep breathe, I drink green tea, and I wake up before my kids and my husband. It's very important.
That's nice. Is there something that you're looking forward to that excites you?
A lot of things excite me. I'm looking forward to traveling to Africa. I guess that would be, I don't know when, I don't have a date, but in my mind, it's like, that's, you know how you're like, this is going to happen. This is going to happen for me. I don't know when. It's not going to be next week or even after COVID anytime soon, because I have a lot of kids and they need to go to school and all that good stuff. But I'm going to Africa. I just don't know when. So if you wanted to take me, I'm not averse to that. And you'd be actually helping me in my life goal. So I would be really appreciative of that. I told all my African friends, if you want to take me, I don't know what you got set up there, but
right.
I'm ready.
So you don't have any, do you have a place in mind or region in mind?
Definitely a region, definitely West Africa. Okay. But also, because I've been to Africa, I've been to Egypt, right? But I was a teenager. It's different. You know, you just feel like, oh, the world's my oyster. I can, but Egypt was beautiful and it was very impactful. But I was young and didn't appreciate the gravity of this place that I was in. And also, it didn't feel like the people that I wanted to see. So Egypt is very much a melting pot of, European and North African societies. And it just felt counter to what I wanted to see. I really wanted to see more of the communal type of African society or West African society. I just wanted to see that. And in Egypt, where I was in Cairo, so it felt like New York. And I was like, this feels like a city. This is not at all what I wanted to experience. So I would also like to go to Kenya, because my mom has been to Kenya, and she's like, oh, you would love it there. You want that community. You want that village feel. I was like, I just want to see people existing in their own paradigm, and doing for each other. That's all I want. I really want to see that. But I want to see Black people doing that. Yeah. Period.
Nice. Yeah. That's a good thing to have on your list. You have a lot of opportunities. a lot of great countries on the continent. So
Right.
you will.
Right. I'm just waiting for one of them to bite. That's why I said Africa. I know Africa is the continent. I get it. There's 54 countries. I can choose. But I'm like, one of y'all is going to invite me there. There's going to be an opportunity. And I'm speaking that right now in this interview.
You're putting it into the air.
Yeah. I know it will happen now.
Yes, definitely. What do you do in your professional life, and how did you get to where you are?
Oh, gosh. You got to ask me that long story, huh? So I am an assistant to the executive director. I'm in for a leadership team at a disability agency. That was not what I thought. I went to school for economics and Africana studies. That was my BA at Rutgers. I got to that position because of my son. I have a son that has a disability. And had it not been for him, I wouldn't have had that even, I wouldn't even get understood that this was even a profession or this was even an industry. So I work in disability service, and what we do is we provide community support and employment support and day supports to people with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities, and making sure that they have what they need in order for them to thrive in life and live the life that they choose to live. And many people, when they see our model, they don't think of people with disabilities being able to make these choices, especially people that have severe disabilities or severe intellectual disabilities. They're very much discounted. So my son led me to that work because when he was diagnosed, he has a dual diagnosis, and his diagnosis is very obvious, and he has dwarfism and cerebral palsy. So when you look at him, you clearly know something's up, right? I mean, some people can't pinpoint it because they still think he might be a baby with a big head, but he's not. he has dwarfism, and it's very, it's an obvious disability, but it's something that is stigmatized, and people will try to limit him because of his stature, and because they think, oh, look at him, and that there's this whole sorrow that people feel. And I'm like, whoa. That's not the vision that I have for him. Yeah. My vision is that he will figure out how his life will be, but he'll have every opportunity that he needs. But in order for him to do that, I have to be a really strong advocate. So I ended up going to, initially when he was diagnosed, I kind of sought out people that looked like him and found that he has a very rare disability. There's not a lot of people in the area that look like him. And then I realized that in order for him to thrive in school, I would need to have a level of understanding of the system in order for him to get everything that he needed. So I did an advocacy course, and it was called Leaders, Special Education Leaders. And I did that right before he went to kindergarten because I wanted to understand how the school system worked. And once I did that, I recognized, okay, this is a huge industry. This is like a huge system, and I didn't know anything about it. And so therefore I'm like, how can I advocate for something I don't know anything about? And how can I make sure that my son has what he needs? And obviously I have 3 children and he's 1, but I really knew nothing about the disability industry. I know about Black boys and I know about being Black, but I don't know anything about disability. So I didn't know how to navigate that at all. So I took this course, and then I found out about a program at the agency that I work in now. It's called Parent to Parent, and it's about parents that have children with disability helping each other to understand how to navigate the systems and what they need access to. So I joined the group, but they didn't have any parents that could help me because nobody had my son's disability in the area, or the coordinator didn't know anybody. So I ended up having to help her find somebody to help me. So I ended up getting connected to a lot of different organizations and meeting a lot of different people. And then the coordinator moved to Minnesota. And she was like, you'd be perfect because you're already kind of doing your own support, because I didn't have anything for you. I couldn't even find a parent, and you went out and found like an organization, and then you told me about it. So she was like, you should be doing this work. So I took over her position and then became a member of the leadership team because I'm the person that speaks for parents that have children that are getting services. And so I ended up here because I was a mother and I was not about to sit back and let any system dictate what's going to happen to my child.
It's beautiful. Is there something on your bucket list to learn?
Dang. Yeah. I want to be a yoga instructor, but I also want to jump out of planes. I want to be an instructor to teach people to jump out of planes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that's all halted because I don't want to put my life online. At a certain point, I want to do that. And there's one more thing. I want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. These are all because I live in a very, kind of just trying to make sure I stay on the up and up, try to make sure things are very, just calm and cool and nurturing for my kids. But I'm like, once y'all are older, I am doing me. I don't care if I'm gonna be 65 on a ninja bike, I'm gonna learn how to do it, okay? And I'm gonna be that woman. It's like so inappropriate. Why is she dressed like that?
Okay, hold up. You said yoga, but you do yoga now, right?
I do, but I want to be an instructor.
Okay.
I want to be an instructor for people who have experienced trauma and who need it, right? Not for people who are just fecky and they just want to learn something new. I wanted to do it for people because I know how nurturing it has been for me.
Yeah.
Yes, I keep all things real. I don't want to appropriate, right? So I try to learn from people who it is indigenous to, indigenous to. But I definitely want to teach, especially I want to teach Black mothers who have traumatic experiences or who are dealing with trauma. I really want to teach them how to take care of themselves when nobody else is taking care of them. And I think yoga helped me to do that, but it also opened my mind. Like, yoga is not just about the exercises. It's about really nurturing your spirit and kind of understanding your spirit and understanding all of the inputs that life brings your way and what you don't have to allow to affect you. So it's kind of a science more so than, I see it more of a science than an exercise with Becky.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, what I was getting at was, at least the yoga you've already started,
right?
The practice, but for the jumping out of the planes and do you have your motorcycle license?
No.
Okay.
Are you judging? I'm going to get it, Mike. Now that I've said it on camera. Dang. Right, let me write it down. So, okay, get license 1. I actually saw somebody getting their license, like they were practicing in a church parking lot, and I was like, oh my God, that should be me. But I'm taking these kids to school. I played myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are so interesting. Do you know anyone that rides a bike?
I do. And it's funny because when my college roommate, she rides bikes. She's in a bike club. And I remember us together saying, we're going to get bikes. And I'm like, you did it. But see, I got knocked up and she stayed the course. I finished school up. I got married earlier than she did. I don't think she's not even married and she doesn't have any kids. So she stayed the course and got her motorcycle license. Meanwhile, I was like, my life took a totally different turn. Now I have to put certain things in place to make sure that the legacy is intact before I take risks. But I could get the license. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
That'll be dope. That's a good things to.
I mean, I'm gonna be cute on my bike. Know that.
Nice. What have you learned recently that changed your perspective on a subject, product, or idea?
So I don't know if it's anything specific, but my son, okay, so I'm very much a part of this. I just love Black people, right? As a diasporic ideal. I love all Black people. But my son was saying, he was calling me out and calling me prejudiced, right? And I'm like, well, not really. I'm just focused, right? I know what my focus is. And because he had some pictures that he had on his phone, I was like, what are you doing with these pictures? They don't represent what I think is beautiful and the ideal that I thought you should be looking at. And he's like, you really need to like check that, right? He's like, and I was like, you're 14. But he's right in the fact that just because I'm focused on my people doesn't mean that I have to discount what he likes, number one, and what other people represent. Yeah. No matter the turmoil, no matter the trauma, no matter the history, it's like he's like, you're being a hypocrite because you're all, God made all people, but then you're just giving everybody else the side eye that's not Black. And I'm like, okay. So it's showing me that I need to be more living out those ideals of, loving God's creatures, because they come in all shapes and colors. And just because I'm focused on my people and making sure that they're seen in the best light and loving them, doesn't mean that I don't love other people. And so sometimes the words that I use make it seem like that. And I just have to be mindful of that and understand that every generation sees something different. And but my thing is, I just want him to understand our people. And so that I'm very strong about that, but he's right. And I hate it when kids are right and their parents are growing. It is so humbling. Because it almost feels like, are you the parent? So I'm learning and I'm growing, and I didn't always see things like I do now. And so I need to get back to the point of seeing things from a more humane and, loving humanity, even though I stay focused. So he helped me with that very recently. And I didn't even feel any kind of way about him calling me out. I was like, that's fine. But then I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I gotta think that through. Yeah. The impression that's leaving on, and the legacy that I'm leaving. I don't necessarily want to leave a prejudiced legacy. Yeah. But I want to leave a legacy. And if I'm saying, and most of the time we're talking to a teenager, he's 14, you're going to lead them down the very road you don't want them to go down, as strong as you feel about something. So we've been having more conversations, and he's been trying to call me out, and that's his favorite part, calling me out on when he sees me going counter to that narrative of loving all people.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Can you think of any advice that you would give your younger self?
Just don't be so critical of yourself, and make sure that you have a vision for what you want to see in your life, and every thought that you have should be headed toward that vision, and not being led by whatever happens, right? I would just tell her, just think about what your purpose is and constantly try to cultivate that purpose, and keep your thoughts there and not on what everybody else is doing, and not, counterintuitive toward that purpose and vision. But you got to keep your mind, and the purpose changes, and it's okay. And your vision, your purpose doesn't change, but your vision and how you go about serving out your purpose, it just changes. But I can be super critical. If I'm critical of you, Mike, I am 1,000% more critical of myself. And that, I think, has set me back as far as being able to see my value and worth, and I lost a couple of years there, but I'm getting them back, especially on my bike.
Nice. Well, and what's the best advice you've received?
The best advice, let me think about that. I think that would be the same advice. That advice of cultivating your vision of yourself, and just really understanding your goals and striving for them, and not allowing and making sure that everything you do aligns with your purpose and your goals. I think that's why I'm changing talking to my younger self in that way, is because that is what I really want to drive home, because it's difficult in life. Every day there's so many challenges, and, you get tired, you wane. And then when you do that and you kind of go off course, but staying on your path and finding your purpose, and it's not going to be like a blueprint, and it's not going to say, okay, here's your purpose, go for it. But you have to really kind of listen to your intuition and understand that there are not really any coincidences that happen. It really does. Everything happens in your mind and your mindset, and every thought that you think manifests itself. And if you don't change your mentality and your thoughts, then exactly what you think is going to happen to you. So I wish I had known that a lot younger, because I can even hear myself thinking certain things. I'm like, okay, that's exactly why that happened to you, because you literally thought it and it manifested itself. But also that's not easy, because there's so many inputs into our minds, especially in this information culture that we live in. There's a lot of inputs. So making sure that you keep the right inputs in your system is a struggle.
Yeah. What has been the toughest thing you had to tackle, and what helped you get through it?
I gave birth to 26-week-old twins. Yeah, it was so rough that I didn't even know that I was going through it when I was going through it. I just kind of, how they say you just take one moment at a time?
Yeah.
I just remember my eyes being bloodshot, dry, and I was tired, but I would never be resting. I would always be going, because my main focus was to get them out of there healthy, and make sure that they didn't pass, like knowing that your children are that close to their life being, not even manifested on the earth. It was like it was very traumatic. And coming back out of that was like, how in the world did I get through that time? But I had a lot of people like feeding me, literally bringing me food, literally calling me every day, checking in, just so I knew that I wasn't doing it alone.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, who was 4 at the time, I was like feeling really guilty. And he says, Mom, you have like the best babysitters in the world. Like they're like top-notch nurses and doctors watching over your kids, monitoring them. And he's 4, right? And he's like, you really need to rest. He's like, you're doing the best you can. And I'm like, how are you 4? So that was a really rough time, but it was so many things that was helping me. And I have a really big family, but I have a lot of good friends, and they ride for me. Yeah. So that was a really rough time, but I had my riders.
Nice. When I say happy, what comes to mind?
Oh, my kids and my family, and joking, having a good time.
You're a jokester.
I just like happiness and smiling. I do. I think that it really makes, it lifts my spirits, and I like when people are happy.
Yeah. What qualities or character traits do you admire in other people?
I admire people that think strategically, that can kind of look at something and assess it and see it 10 years down the road and take everything that they're working on down that road. When I see people, I'm like, you are laser focused. I love that. Because I'm like, look at the squirrel. Hey, oh girl, let's talk, right?
You're like Dory,
Yes. This girl. And, I'm over here talking. Meanwhile, that person is laser focused. And then the way like people that think strategically, the way they see things is just, it's just really dynamic. I just love that they can see that far down the road and just stay focused, and they have these wonderful ideas and like lofty and big, and they actually, come to, most of the time, those people, their ideas come to fruition. Yeah. So I love that.
Nice. All right, for a fun question, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you do?
What would I do? Well, we're in COVID, so I'm definitely getting up out of here. And I'm going to Africa. I'll go to Senegal, since you need to know a specific place. I'll go to Senegal, but then I would like do a little trek all up and down West Africa. Nice. I hear that their COVID isn't as deep, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely go to, but I would also stay in very luxurious places. So. Nice. But I'm definitely chartering a plane and taking all my people, and we're gone. But I'll put the rest of the money away. Or we'll see. Lottery's tricky, man. Lottery's evil.
It is. All right. So you're a parent, 3 boys. What values are you hoping to imprint on them?
To take care of other people and put their focus on helping their community to be better. When they see a problem, to be a problem solver, not to dwell on the issues, but to really try to solve that issue. And not to ignore people who are downtrodden or down and out, and definitely not to judge people's situation when they don't understand the totality of their experience. I really just want them to be really good people that are driven, have values, have goals, but have a vision for their life. And I want them all to serve whatever purpose they came here for. And I also want them to bring me really, really nice daughters-in-law. I'm afraid for me and my husband to be left with them 3 as at the helm. I want their wives to be very strong and very kind and loving. So we can carry this tradition of, Black love.
Nice. Is there anyone that you would like to thank or express your appreciation to that you haven't gotten a chance to yet?
Oh, let's think. Yes, I want to thank Mrs. Powell. She wasn't even my counselor, but she was a high school counselor in my school. But she is the woman who took me to Egypt when I was 17 for my senior trip for 3 weeks for free. I didn't pay a dime because she saw something in me. She wanted me to see the world because she didn't want me to think of where I was, the high school that I was in, as the end all. And she wanted me to see how the world lived. She wanted me to get a grasp of it, just get a taste of it so that that I would want more. Mm-hmm. She used to make up leadership positions. She used to make up clubs and then make me the president of the club, right? So she was very impactful. There were so many things that I learned after the fact that she had to endure because I went to a predominantly white school and there was only a handful of excellent Black students or Black students who really wanted to do well. And she did not want us to be thwarted by the system that we were in. So she would just make up stuff. We started this club called Sisters for Success in School. We were a step group. We were the first step group in Montgomery County, I think, at Sherwood High School. And she made me the president of that. She made me the president of Cultural Awareness Club. I was like, what? I don't even know how to be a president or a leader. And she did that. So I want to say thank you to Ms. Powell. I love her. I just know that she did her best to implant in me what she thought she saw. And I hope she is happy.
Nice, nice. No, that's good. For our final question, how do you define success?
Michael, why do you ask me these hard questions? They're so deep. It's late. I define success as making sure that you're serving your, it's always going to lead back to purpose, that you are serving your purpose, but you're sustaining it, and you're sustaining it legacy status for the rest of the world. I love him. That you're sustaining that legacy status, and that you're creating a legacy for generations of your family to be wealthy, healthy, and creating community and making this world feel like a community instead of, every man for himself. I want my great-grandchildren to have an impact. So I think that's, if your great-grandchildren has an impact, then you call yourself successful. Of course, you would not know that, probably, but it's not necessarily for you to know.
Right. Well, I think that's the perfect way to end. We connected, we politic.
Yes.
And we will definitely do this again in the near future. I want to thank you. It was hilarious, insightful, fun, all of you.
Thank you. I had a good time. Your deep questions. Now I got to go think about if I said the right thing.